I'm sure it's hard to imagine, but could you imagine waking up and losing the ability to use your hands? Getting out of bed, holding a cup of coffee for a long time by the handle, brushing your teeth in her case, just doing day-to-day things. Overall, you're going to lose your sense of independence. You know, driving, holding the steering wheel probably won't be comfortable for her anymore. Just put yourself in her shoes and think how she would feel. Or try your best. Because at the age of 18, a very young girl, she now has to live her life a different way due to the unsecure roller coaster. Not due to diving into the lake. Building on that, going off of Aiden's statement, like I said before, she said that Avery came up and said bottom, assuming that means she hit the bottom of the lake. It's clear that this didn't hurt her hands because she then used the ladder to get out of the lake. And I'm sure everybody's used a ladder before. You're going to grip the sides and go up. If her hands were hurting her, she would not have been able to do that. Another thing she said is that they were wearing bathing suits. As we all know, bathing suits are made out of slippery material. She said it was nice out, it was hot out, they dried, but regardless, bathing suits aren't friction friendly. This being said, Avery was most likely sliding around a lot in the ride due to her bathing suit. We spoke on the rings and the skee ball. Like I said before, if her hands were really hurting her after hitting the bottom of the lake, she wouldn't have been able to throw a skee ball or throw a ring or even hold her cell phone. And she said she was pretty sure she saw an old man come out of the same seat and possibly claimed that he said there was no seatbelt as well. Aiden then goes on to talk about how the ride attendant was terrible, wasn't looking around, didn't even check to make sure anybody was okay. The ride was unsecure. Aiden then talks about how she has ADHD. And she claims that she doesn't look at signs very much. But if you ask me, someone who has ADHD is probably looking around a lot, not paying attention to certain things. I think someone with ADHD who looks around a lot would most likely notice a sign, even though she said she didn't. I think she would notice it. To continue, the Dr. Pavlik says she has lack of insurance. She's going to see all these doctors, doesn't have this insurance, she's going to need money for that. Something that the park should ultimately have to pay for. Diagnosed her with trauma. Obviously this makes sense because she went through a ride that is supposed to be a Category 5 hurricane simulator. To continue the statement from the mechanic, like I talked about before, he said he had to wear 2 hats that day. He said, considering the manager is cheap and doesn't want to pay people to work, he had to do multiple jobs. He is a caring person. He said he had to care for his father at a young age. Quit school, had to care for his father. This being said, I don't think this mechanic would allow for this to happen. I'm sure if he saw the problem with her seat, which Aiden said before, an old man came out and had the same issues, probably is hurting worse than Avery, honestly. But I think this mechanic would not allow this to happen. Seems like a caring person. That day on the ride, he had to wear an eye patch. Like I said before, you can't see very well with one eye. To continue, the owner is described as an angry person. The mechanic says the owner was on the phone when he was trying to show him the video of what happened, didn't pay much attention. He said the camera is at an angle several feet in front of the ride, above the ride, and out. So it can see the ride. But what it probably can't see is Avery because she's small and she was surrounded by 2 giant people, according to the people that were there. He said that in the video he thinks he saw her flailing about her seatbelt that wasn't on as if to show off to her friends. Well, she was there with her one friend who was also on the ride with her. How could she show that off if she's on the ride with her, behind some giant person? It's not possible. To be frank, the owner's lying. He most likely didn't even watch the video, as he's too busy being cheap with his money. Lastly, Dr. Bones states how I said before, moving around a roller coaster is not sufficient to hurt your hands. But if you're gripping on these handlebars, it's going to hurt your hands. To overall conclude, Avery's life is now different forever. Avery won't ever be able to paint. She won't ever be able to get the education she was going to get due to the school changing. And she needs this money to pay for these bills and to pay for physical therapy. I hope you can see things from my point of view. I hope I made a good statement. And thank you for your time.